In the first two videos, we focused on addition. In this last video for lesson 2, we're going to focus on subtraction. So subtracting polynomials is going to be very similar to what we did in adding polynomials. We just have to worry about that minus sign in the middle instead of having a plus sign there. So if we look at example 3, we have simplified the quantity x cubed plus 3x squared plus 5x minus 4. And then we're going to be subtracting the quantity 3x cubed minus 8x squared minus 5x plus 6. So you'll notice that, as I was saying, instead of having a plus sign in between there, we have a minus sign there that we have to deal with. And the way that we're going to deal with that is by distributing that negative through the parentheses. So what some people do to help them remember that what they're really doing here is multiplying everything in the parentheses times a negative 1 is they go ahead and stick a little 1 right there in front of the parentheses. Whether you do that or not, it's up to you. It just helps some people kind of visualize what they're actually doing in this process. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to rewrite my first set of parentheses. I don't have any signs out in front of here that's going to change it. So I'm going to leave this as x cubed plus 3x squared plus 5x minus 4. Nothing was in front of here, so I didn't have to modify that. That's one mistake that some people make when they're doing these problems, is they want to take that negative and multiply everything through with the negative. It's not going to affect anything that came before that negative sign, and it's not going to affect anything that's going to be anything outside the parentheses that immediately follow it. So in this case, I only want to distribute this negative 1 to each of the terms in that second set of parentheses. I'm going to do a negative 1 times a 3x cubed, a negative 1 times a negative 8x squared, a negative 1 times a negative 5x, and a negative 1 times a positive 6. And what that's going to let us do is, since we're going to distribute that negative sign through everything else, it's really going to allow us to add the rest of the results of the distribution. So when I multiply that negative 1 through, it's going to give me a negative 3x cubed, a positive 8x squared. Remember that as you distribute a negative, when you multiply something by a negative 1, basically all it's doing is changing it to the opposite sign. So any of our negatives are going to become positive, and any of our positives are going to become negative. So when I do a negative 1 times a negative 5x, that's going to give me a positive 5x. And a negative 1 times 6 is going to give me a negative 6. So I have distributed that negative 1 through all my pieces of the parentheses. And now it turns into a basic adding polynomials problem. What I'm going to do is, again, I'm going to look for like terms. So I'm going to do something to highlight my like terms. I have an x cubed here. I have a negative 3x cubed there. I also have a positive 3x squared. Remember, you always want to include that sign in front so that you don't make any sign errors when you're combining them. And I have the 8x squared here. I also have a 5x and a positive 5x over here as well. And then last but not least, I have the negative 4 and I have the negative 6. So the last thing I need to do is combine these together. So a positive x cubed and a negative 3x cubed is going to give me a negative 2x cubed. Remember, you're just going to combine the coefficients. Remember, this had a positive 1, and you're going to leave the exponents the same. I then had a positive 3x squared and a positive 8x squared. So that's going to give me 11x squared. I have a positive 5x and a positive 5x. So that's going to give me a plus 10x. And then last but not least, I have a negative 4 and a negative 6, which is going to give me a negative 10. Now, I just double checked that I don't have any other like terms that I missed. Each of these are its own unique term. So I have my final answer here of negative 2x cubed plus 11x squared plus 10x minus 10. All right, you got two you try problems to do. Make sure that you check those on the webpage once you have taken the time to do them. And then go ahead and start your practice once you're sure that you have the concepts down. And make sure to ask your teacher for any help you need along the way. All right, see you guys in the next lesson.